You ever think to yourself, wow, this is going to be so difficult. I'm not even going to get started. This is what a lot of people do when they have a outcome that they want to achieve and they look at what's involved and then they give up before they even get started. And that's a real shame because all of the glory is to be gained while you're on the path towards a goal that you want to achieve, something that you want to happen. And it happens in the doing. Everything that you can learn happens in the doing, the glory and the majesty of it. And it's just extraordinary what happens when you get started. If you're hopping on the call, let me know where you are in the world and what you're doing, what you're thinking, and hit that thumbs up. Let me know you're engaged. And by the way, guys, the memory connection has arrived. Here it is, and it looks pretty good. It's got a nice color scheme and so forth, and having a lot of fun looking through it. And of course, it's a huge project. And when I looked at it, I had this exact same thing. It's just like, how am I going to pull this off? This is not my first book, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a massive project to put something together like this and bring it out to the world, especially when it is connected to a print newsletter. So this is the first edition of the newsletter, and that means that I got to go out and take these books to the mailbox, right? And it's a massive, massive project, and it's really cool. But it's the same thing as anything with like improving your memory. It can seem like, wow, this is really, really big, and it's going to take forever, and then they just talk themselves out of it and they don't even get started. And that's a real deep sadness because you're the only one who can do the things that you want to do, but you have to actually do them, right? You have to get started doing them. So let's get in here with some comments. Let me know where you are in the world. And Dr. Sarah Pop here says, raining in Bangkok. And, so you prefer to be called Kopkun Rap? Is that right? Or you're in a place called Kopkun Rap? Not sure how best to address you, but thank you for being here. Thanks for letting me know where you are and how you're doing. Now, about this new book, if you're interested in information about how to get it, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect and let me know what your struggles are with projects. You've just got to get started with things. And one of the best ways to get started, if you're struggling with just getting started, is to get paper out and jot down an outline. And think of, there's many, many different ways to do this, but think about what it is that you want the outcome to be. And just be as clear about it as you possibly can, as honest about it as you possibly can, and be really, really, really devoted to the fact that you want that outcome. And then reverse engineer the process. What are the steps that you would need to take in order to make it happen? So if it's a particular memory improvement goal that you have, describe it, put it out there. What's the outcome? What is it going to look like? And I'm not talking about fantasy imagery or visualization or anything like that, because we know from science that a lot of visualization can actually be retrograde and destructive and discouraging. So for example, a lot of people, when they want to get fit, they'll say, I want to be like Schwarzenegger, and they'll do all these visualization exercises that are just discouraging. Think about it. If you're first of my statue body, and I think, oh, I want to be like Schwarzenegger, what more could I do to discourage myself than to use that image, right? It just wouldn't be that great. But if I can create an image of me putting on my gym shoes and going to the gym, then that's a little bit more realistic, and that's where visualization comes in. No, what I'm talking about is like, what's the actual outcome? Like, what is it that you want to achieve that doesn't really require visualization, but it requires some sort of realistic portrait of what it is that you want to happen, that you want to make sense of it. And when you write it down, you'll actually begin to see what it is you're trying to do and if it is even realistic. So you can just simply get a piece of paper, like I have this piece of paper here, I want you to connect, so I wrote connect on there, magneticmemorymethod.com/connect, and that's about this book. And when I wanted to make this book happen, which is a huge project, but doing even better than I thought it was going to do, and have it, all connected in a particular way. I had to figure out what it is that I want to see happen and then reverse engineer it and think of the steps. So it's the same thing. If you want to improve your memory, what is it that you want out of your memory to do, right? And then write that down and then see if you're not creating a picture that's just unrealistic, that isn't even needed, because then you can say, why? Why? And one of the best things that you'll ever do for yourself is to actually ask why, but also why else. So if you write on your little outcome picture there on a piece of paper, you can ask why, but also why else. And you can push that why else for as long as it takes to give yourself so much energy, so much motivation, so much passion that you'll be unstoppable to achieving all the steps. And then you start thinking about what those steps are. So reverse engineering actually isn't quite the right word, but it's figuring out all the steps and keeping in mind that just doing this is getting started. Because if you're not willing to like get out a piece of paper and write some stuff down, then do you really want to do the thing that you're wanting to do? It's so fundamental to everything. And there's no mistake that Tesla is on here. I mean, what did Tesla demonstrate for us? Demonstrate that you write stuff down. And then you figure out what are the steps and you do them. Now, Tesla said that he thought of everything in his mind and thought it through in every single possible way before that he even took any action and so forth. But that's what he said. And there's a lot of writing that went on there as well. And most people, even if we can get into a contest about what Tesla did and didn't do, most people who succeed in things, they write stuff down. And not just on computers, but actually on paper. So you've got to really think, how do I get myself started? How do I accomplish big goals and so forth? Well, you'd be willing to get a scratch pad out and start doing things. And maybe you need to be willing to do a number of scratch pads over and over and over again. But one thing I think that will really, really help you, in addition to thinking about the outcome, is writing down why you want to do it and then pushing why else. And hit that why else again and again and again for as long as it takes in order to test that you actually really want to do it. You really want to do it. So Steve is here. Says, "Good day, Doc. I'm Steve from Darwin. I'm just getting started with memory techniques. What's the best method for learning and memorizing concept models and systems dynamics?" Now, is that Darwin in Australia? There's a professor who I had when I was at university who's in Darwin in Australia, named Christian Book, and he certainly connects with some of your interests in concept models and systems dynamics. He has a thing called the Xenotype Project that you might be very, very interested in. So if you're in Darwin, there's a great resource there. He probably does some public talks about that there as well. So check that out. Let me suggest to you, Steve, that the best method for learning and memorizing concept models and system dynamics would be, what is the method that you're going to use? What are you willing to do? That's basically what we're talking here, right? About is how do we get ourselves to do anything? So you now know something, or you've described something here about the outcome that you're looking for, but you're just saying memorizing concept models and systems dynamics and so forth. So the question is, why? And then why else? Why do you want to do these things? Get a good description rolling for that, and then the blunt answer is create memory palaces. Learn how to use memory palaces. There are other memory techniques that will serve and help and so forth, but you're going to need to understand the spatial memory element, and then you're going to need to unpack autobiographical memory. And I created this book called The Memory Connection that will help you do that. Connect spatial memory with autobiographical memory, with all of the modes of your imagination and your brain and your perception, and really, really wrap them up tight. If you're interested in how to get this, magneticmemorymethod.com/connect. And the cool thing is with this book is that it is designed to make sure that you keep the connection going. So your book will come with the Magnetic Memory Method newsletter, which is really exciting. And it is a massive project that I wanted to get together. And I had to do this. I had to say why. Why else? Because it's it's a really, really big thing. But I'm really excited by all the all the people who've jumped on board, because now I'm going after lunch. I'm just keep looking over there because April's going to come in here any minute. We're going to have lunch, and then we're going to go and we're going to go to the post office and send, wow, like a stack of these suckers out. And it's really, really exciting because I saw it in my mind, this massive project, but more than see it in my mind, I figured it all out, sorted it all out, and then started to take action. And that's the next part of the question, or answer to your question, Steve, is that you've got to get started. So the answer is do this, do that. The training is all there. If you've been to magneticmemory.com, then you've had access to a training course that will take you through everything. But the extraordinary results happen for people who take action. And as I teach the action, it involves one of these. It doesn't have to be a Sharpie. It could be a pen or a pencil. And it involves some paper. And it means getting involved in creating memory palaces, because this is how you unlock your spatial memory. And it's how you start the process of connecting your spatial memory with other aspects of your memory, autobiographical memory, and so forth, so that you're able to actually develop these techniques. Because that outcome that you want, being able to memorize things and have them stay in long-term memory forever, for good, they're going to require use and doing. And a lot of people, they feel like, well, doing, I don't have the confidence. I hear that people don't have the confidence all the time, and it breaks my heart, because the secret to getting confidence is just getting started and doing. And doing is the cure. I've got the cure. Doing is the origin of confidence. It's also the origin of courage. It's also the origin of the creativity that one will rely upon in order to get going with these techniques and then keep going with them. And it's really, really incredible what happens when you just start doing. So we got some comments here. Shahir says, how to learn difficult words for biology and some physics formulas. Please help with some tips. And yeah, we can talk about that. Carolyn is here. Hi, Carolyn from Virginia. Congrats on the book. I'll have to get one. Yeah, it's a real beautiful looking book, and it almost looks like you could eat it. Those colors. I think that's you can't, but you could almost, right? Sahir is asking where to get it. The only place to get it is by going to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect, and that's going to be the only way, because it's a very, very exclusive book to help people who have real solid goals and outcomes, and they need a particular kind of help. So go to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect, and I'm so excited. We've got a massive pile that we've got to take to the post office after lunch, and I'm so excited because I just love putting things in the mail. The mail is really good for your memory. Actually, I've developed some N=1 research around this, and it's been very, very helpful for my memory, and really incredible what you can do when you have your memory linked with the postal system. So that's part of this whole project, actually. Interesting stuff. So thanks for your interest, Carol and Shahir, and yeah, magneticmemorymethod.com/connect. And let's see here. So Steve says, will having non-sequential or multiple links between objects in memory palaces interfere with retaining the information? That's a great question, Steve, and it's one of those things that you really only have a problem with when you're doing. And so the answer really ultimately is no, because once that you experience that problem, you'll learn the solution, but it's not really anything to worry about. There is no interference. And if you read up on what's called the ugly sister effect, just search Google, my page will come up top probably for ugly sister effect. That is the scientific term for what you're referring to in memory, and you will never have a problem with that. So go to Google, search up the ugly sister effect, and you'll eliminate that problem altogether. Almost guaranteed. And also on that particular page on magneticmemorymethod.com, you'll see that there's a very long discussion of all the people who've engaged in the discussion on that page about the ugly sister effect. And that is just a gold mine, that page, for doing. But that's the whole point, is like, how do you get started with these results? How do you make it happen for yourself? And the answer is you'd start doing, because doing is the origin of confidence. And so the idea of interference, memory palace interference, mnemonic interference, it's a fantasy. It's just something that people have before that they do, and you will not have when you're doing, because the solutions will be so evident, they'll jump out at you and be very, very easy to solve through doing, and everything that you get. Now, a lot of people, they really feel that they want things faster and faster and faster. And how you get speed is again by you get started. And so my main suggestion for you on this video is to start on paper and reverse engineer. Although reverse engineer isn't really quite the right word, but figure out your why. And I don't mean in the self-helpy way, but I mean in the literally, how are we going to find the energy to drive this? And so how you do that is by going further than the why, and you do the why else. It's been super powerful for me in my life, because it's a way of testing if you really actually have enough reasons to drive the kinds of, it's not effort, you know. Kissing and eating chocolate require effort, as I often like to say. It's not about the effort, it's about the consistency. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to do things. But what's very, very empowering for you is testing that you actually do or do not want to do, because so many people, it's just a mystery in their head. They're like, someday, or yeah, I really want to do that, and then they start to have this guilty feeling, and it really weighs a lot of people down. It destroys their confidence, and it destroys their self-esteem, because they have a lot of things that they just think that they want to do, but they never test it, and they don't realize, actually, you know what, I don't want to do that. And then they can stop torturing themselves, not suffering all the time, because there's so many things that you can do, but that doesn't mean that you really want to do. And there's so many outcomes from the things that you might think that you want to do that you actually don't really want that outcome at all. So there might be other paths for you. Let's see here, we got some questions. Sebastian says, I will get your course one day. Okay, Sebastian, that's great. Shahir says, asks how much time needed to learn the technique. Look, when I have serious students who really just buckle down, take the training, we're talking 2 to 5 hours, and you can have enough skills, enough basis for development of skills to go and become the next world memory champion. This is documented in history. So it's how much time do you have to come to and spend, because in 2 to 5 hours you should have everything that you need. Should never take longer than that. And then after that, it's just the consistency of practice, and how long that is. Now, that's up to you. That's up to you. You know, Alex Mullen has said on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, and I see no reason to doubt it, 15 minutes a day of practice max. Actually, maybe for some people more than that will have a retrograde effect. In Moonwalking with Einstein, Tony Buzan recommends an hour a day, 6 days a week, to Josh Ford as he's heading off to perhaps go and compete. And, you know, that's a great suggestion, but it's not necessarily the suggestion for you. You're your own person. That's what I'm talking about in the memory connection. I'm teaching you actually how to go beyond the advice of this, that person, or whatever, and find you in the equation. Connect with you. And you can do that over at magneticmemorymethod.com/connect to find all the information that you need. So you're going to, as many people do, ask about how long it takes and the speed and so forth. But the real question is, when are you going to do it? And are you going to show up and figure out the answer for yourself? Because only you can actually ultimately know. But the real answer is that it's going to be faster than you even imagined possible, so long as you show up and so long as you do. Because doing is the origin of confidence. It's the origin of courage. It's the origin of creativity. It's the origin of consistency. It's the origin of everything that you need to actually get the results that you're looking for from memory. It's the very same thing with the gym. There's all kinds of gym trainings and different sexy words for this or that thing, but at the end of the day, it's movement, right? And that movement can't happen unless you're at the gym and you show up and you use the tools that are there. And it's shocking. I know for myself because I've gone to the gym and totally transformed my body, lost so much weight, built so much muscle, developed so many skills, and it happened so much faster than I ever imagined possible. You'd think it would be impossible, but it's the consistency that really made it happen. And I knew what my why was in my case with the gym and physical fitness stuff. Like psoriasis, arthritis, which I had suffered a long time, just started to hit real hard. And so I needed to go and get this solved, and I needed to figure it out. So my why was real strong and real loud. And so I would I would highly suggest don't wait till it's a pain when it comes to anything, health or memory. In the memory world, I always say to people, dig your wells before you're thirsty. So, yes, you can do all of this really fast. Yes, you can become a world class uh, memory competitor, memory artist, memory scientist, memory whatever it is that you want very, very quickly in terms of using these techniques to achieve outcomes. You can do it very fast, but if you're under pressure and you're under stress and you're like, oh, I need this and I need that, and you're going to undercut your results. Really, you're going to undercut that speed because you're going to be worrying about too many things. But if you just say, you know what, I'm going to get memory techniques covered in my life. It's an ancient tradition. It's an ancient technique. It's worked for thousands of years. It's not like some sort of woo-woo thing. We've got all the science under the sun supporting it. We know that people can do it. We see it all the time whenever we go to the theater and watch movies, that memory can be done. People do it in multiple ways all the time. So I'm going to get this sorted in my life, and I'm going to start doing it. And so you get some training, and then hopefully the person who's training you has some great stuff, but you got to meet that person halfway, that memory educator, and actually implement, use the techniques, do what they're suggesting. This is how you make the connection. And there are many, many, many ways to make the connection. And I have compiled a lot of them in a special way that helps you understand your autobiographical memory and spatial memory together in a way that really hasn't been unpacked before, along with the six modes, the magnetic modes, and a lot of other things going on here, but in a compact form that you can use, and with some follow-up so that you have the ongoing inspiration and motivation that comes with this incredible art and tradition that we have. So this is a very new thing that hasn't existed before in our tradition and in our art, and that is rigorous and relentless, wonderful follow-up for you to get the results that you're looking for, because you do. Doing is the origin of all the confidence you'll ever need, the consistency you'll ever need, the creativity, and so forth. But my biggest tip for you today is just to figure out what is your outcome that you want and get it described and ask why else. Steve says, thanks for your help. Very much appreciated. I would definitely be interested in attending some talks given by the professor in Darwin. Yeah, look him up. It's a Christian book. I'm a real big fan of him, his poetry, his academic work, scholarly work, whatever you want to call it. And also, I just happen to have had some really great experiences individually because he supervised a directed reading during my MA at York University. So Christian book, and really cool name, of course, as well. And there's some interesting things about that name, and just the work that he does is great. And he's kind of a memory expert in his way. And he certainly talks about poetry and creates poetry that you'll find very memorable. And one of the things, too, that actually, now that he's come up, that I think is really interesting is that he uses a lot of rules, or has in different parts of his career, constraints of a sort, that help guide the production of the poetry that he creates. So constraints have a long history in poetry, probably one of the easiest ways to describe constraint-based poetry is the sonnet. So the sonnet, there's different ways of creating a sonnet, but using iambic pentameter is one way in particular, and then having your stanzas arranged in a particular way. Perhaps you got a volta in there, and you might have a certain rhyme scheme. But the whole point is that the sonnet has particular structural rules and principles, and those rules, they don't really constrain the poet at the end of the day. Instead, the constraints set the poet free to create the sonnet, right? Because the rules set you free. And that's what memory techniques are really about at the end of the day. And it's how you get started, is by just submitting yourself to the constraints so that you can be free to practice the memory tradition, the memory art, the memory skill, the martial art of memory, the talent. It requires something like letting the rules set you free. And that's how you make the connection between your mind and your memory and the things that you want to learn. So I've created this book to help you create those operating rules for yourself. Because if you were a pilot, you would want to have some operating principles in order to get that plane up in the air and all the passengers safe and so forth. So that's what's going on in the memory connection. And if you're interested in grabbing a copy, head on over to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect, and we'll hook you up, get you started. Julie's here, right? Julie says, hi from Central California. I would love to be in Central California right now. She says, I have a bad YouTube connection tonight. I missed the why else. Can you explain that, or did I misread it? Looking forward to getting your book. Yay! The constraints set you free. I like that. Reframing it like that helps a lot. Yeah, well, actually, I got to give my shout out there because Tony Buzan said that. The rules set you free. And it's absolutely true. And I instantly thought of the sonnet. I've written sonnets. The sonnet is such a beautiful art form. But the Memory Palace is also like a sonnet. It has certain features. You create, if you use the magnetic memory method, that is, you create the Memory Palace according to some very, very strong principles that set you free to use it, not only to encode the information, but to decode the information so that you get the outcomes that you want. And the outcomes are clear. You want to memorize the information. You want to be able to use it 100%, right? If you just follow those constraints, that's what's going to happen. Problem is, and there's some misinformation about this out there actually. A lot of people say, well, do you have to spend more time on encoding or decoding? And the reality is that is something only you can answer by being someone who uses memory techniques. Nobody can say, well, more time on encoding is better or more time on decoding is better. The reality is that you're going to figure that out. And that's what I teach, is like figuring out your own equations so you know more reliability. You can make better predictions. Better do a little bit more decoding on that one, right? Because you know your style. Everybody develops a mnemonic style. And you develop it very, very quickly if you just get in and keep doing. So, Julie, about why else? The point here is that when we're trying to, there's ants everywhere. This is my first time in spring in Australia, and the insects are fun to observe. Because we were here more at the end of summer when we first moved here, and didn't really quite know what was coming. And we saw the insect culture there, and now we're seeing the insect culture of the spring. Really fun. But yeah, we want to ask why. So we write down our outcome, as I was talking about earlier in the call, and then we ask why do we want that outcome, and we put it in writing. And then we ask why else. Always push to why else. Get as many why else's as you can, and test, because that's a good way of knowing whether you really want to invest in something. Why else do I want this? Sell yourself a little bit on what it is that you want to do, and then figure out all the steps, and then just start doing. And when you do, you'll get the origin of confidence, you get the origin of consistency, you'll get the origin of creativity, you get the origin of everything that you want, everything that you need. So Julie says, got it. Excellent. Good. Thanks everybody for being on the call, by the way. If you haven't said hello let me know where you are in the world, what's going on, what the weather's like, what your memory is like. how the weather is connected to your memory? Love to hear. And Steve Mills says, have you ever had any experience with Aboriginal memory techniques or met any Aboriginal elders who utilize those techniques? Great question, Steve. And in some ways, I have had some experience with Aboriginal memory techniques, but that's through reading Lynn Kelly's The Memory Code. Does anybody here know The Memory Code by Lynn Kelly? Excellent book. She talks a lot about Aboriginal memory techniques and fascinating stuff. Quite frankly, the ultimate assessment is that they are using a lot of spatial memory that is so profound if you know how to unlock it, if you know how to tap into it. And I don't know that there's much autobiographical memory going on there, but we now certainly have autobiographical memory, and that's what I'm helping you unpack in the memory connection. The thing, and the reason why that I would suggest that probably the Aboriginal ancient tradition, anyway, in the prehistoric and those times back then, as historians hate to hear you say back then, but probably why I would think that there was less, if any, autobiographical memory involved is because the whole notion of the self, that I am an I, that's relatively actually new in the human species. There's different arguments about when exactly it emerged, and there's different ways in which that it emerged over time. So there's some really interesting people who argue, well, the self, the ego, as we know it now, emerged in the Romantic era, and they'll look at Frankenstein and compare that to like Moll Flanders or whatever, and you'll see the presentation of what a self is like in the novelistic tradition, which is very, very compelling and interesting, and a lot to be understood from that really will change how you think about you, which is always good. But yeah, if you look at novels earlier than that in the novelistic tradition, if you can even call them novels, if you look at the presentation of the self and the ego in poetry, epic poetry, in Shakespeare, etc., you'll see that actually the self as we think of ourselves didn't always exist. It's changing now as we speak, and it's really, really incredible. And we have a resource that memory people, mnemonists, people who used memory techniques in the past, didn't have, because the self just didn't exist in that way. People didn't experience the self in that way back then, but we do. And a great deal of the memory connection is teaching you how to. Ooh, almost had a casualty there. It's teaching you about how to get connected with your autobiographical memory in ways that a lot of people just don't have access to. So I'm really excited about that, and helping people do that in a way that lasts. And that's really the key here, is that it lasts. So we want it to last for life. So WizKids here, hey there, he says, I found your How to Memorize a Textbook article, and I was wondering how you make the information interesting when you read it. Does the why else thing apply here too? Yeah, great question. Thanks for that, WizKid. Yes, well, how do you make information interesting? There's a podcast about 5 ways to make boring topics more interesting on the Magnetic Memory Method blog, and you'll want to look at that. It's all written as well if you prefer to read, but listening to the podcast and reading is a good idea as well, to really reinforce the concepts. But the first thing that I say there, and I'll leave you to go and check out the rest of the 4, is that you've got to just be damn thankful that you have the opportunity to learn in the first place. So if you want to make it more interesting, just get interested in the fact that you're reading it at all, right? And I know that might sound like a kind of, happy-go-lucky kind of thing, and positive cheerleading, blah, blah, blah. But when you really think about it, right, isn't it amazing? Just the chance alone that you were even born, for one thing, and then you were born in a particular geospatial and chronological frame that enables you to even have anything to learn at all. This is incredible. You could have been born in a bog in 1492 and spent your life hoping that there'd be enough fish and firewood so that you didn't have the pangs of starvation as, rapid onset arthritis took over and left you in a world of pain, and then you were abandoned as you got older by your family that was moving on, right? And I really, really stress this because a lot of people, they don't understand human history. They don't understand just how good we got it. And so there are no boring topics. There's no boring topics. You are honored and privileged to even have the opportunity to learn anything at all, just by luck of this being the time that you appeared on Earth in wherever it is that you were. And any person watching this video now has access to magic, right? It is magic, pure magic, absolute magic that this is even happening at all, that we can have this discussion. And so how could there ever be any boring topic? That we've got to change our mindset. And if it is truly painful, that excruciating and that uninteresting, then you got to think about your why and your why else and what else could you be doing, right? Because life's too short to be sitting around suffering to connect with information. And if you do find it a struggle or you do find it boring or so forth, then one of the first things to do is just be damn grateful that you have the problem in the first place. Because most people have first world problems, and or not most people, but a lot of the people who feel like information is uninteresting, they're just not in the right mindset. We've got to be grateful for what we got, and we got to recognize it, and we got to recognize it frequently and often, and just get down to doing stuff. Because when you're doing, well, doing is just wonderful. You can create the zone anytime that you want, anyhow, and it's a lot easier than it seems. And so one of the things, just to help you a little bit further here, that will really unlock this is make sure that you have some kind of gratitude ritual or tradition, that you're unlocking your gratitude every single day. You're unpacking it every single day and connecting with it every single day, because nothing on earth guarantees that you're going to have it for 1 minute longer, not even 1 second longer. Nothing guarantees it. Now there's probabilities that nothing bad's going to happen. The roof isn't going to fall on your head like it almost fell on old Simonides' head, which is so important to the memory tradition, that story, if you know what I mean. But we are so blessed and so lucky, so many of us. And man, if you just start recognizing that every day, and you just get down to what it is that needs to be done, you'll find that the pain and the suffering and the boredom just disappears. And then, of course, memory techniques, they're a great way of getting rid of boredom and eliminating the uninterestingness of topics that are sometimes uninteresting, because you're using your autobiographical memory in combination with spatial memory, and you're just unlocking so many interesting things through the process of memory techniques. Memory techniques are the most excitement-injecting substance there is in the world. So, boring, let's take a shot at mnemonics. Woo! It's exciting again. I mean, I can't look at any information when people send me all these crazy diagrams and that they're on like a implementation boot camp with me or whatever. I'm just like, bring it on. Like, let's look at this stuff and begin to look at it. And it just is interesting by virtue of using the memory techniques. The memory techniques themselves make it more interesting, because you're like, oh, how are we going to solve this? It's like loving crossword puzzles or loving Sudoku, whatever you call that game, Sudoku. I don't know, I don't play it, but it's like having a fondness for something. So one of the number one things to do is turn memory techniques into more than a skill for yourself. Turn them into a hobby. Turn them into something you're doing all the time, so that boring information, boring things can't ever be boring because you just love it too much. You're just switched on. You're switched on by the challenge. You're switched on by learning itself, because you now have an opportunity to go inside your mind and connect spatial memory with your life, and connect learning with this game that you play. Like, I don't know why they always like, oh, video games. I'm like, whoa, man, I'd rather play memory games right here inside the head, because it's so rewarding and it's so much fun. There's no boring information. I've never seen information that's boring. The only thing that's boring is the attitude. There's an attitude of boredom that you can bring to anything. So hope that helps, WizKid. And I love that name, WizKid. You can be a WizKid times 1,000 with the right headspace. Julie says, I'm listening to Lynn's book now. If you just hopping on, we're talking about Lynn Kelly's The Memory Code here. Listening on Audible. Love Audible. Really good, and she covers a lot of the use of memory techniques by the Aboriginal people. And Steve says, yes, reading it now. I got to visit some remote communities in WA a long time ago, but never watched any ceremonies. I did a lot of native singing. Oh wow, that sounds amazing. Did you remember any of those tunes? Either the rhythms or the sounds or any of the words? That'd be interesting to know. Jaideep's here. Hello, Jaideep. Great to see you as always. Shafika says, does the magnetic memory method provide a systematic study method that would help someone teach or learn how to study effectively for kids in secondary school as opposed to just memorizing facts? Shafika, great question, because that's exactly what we do. The catch is that I'm not giving you the system. I'm teaching you how to create the system for yourself. And this is where everything is different with the magnetic memory method compared to everything else. Because people throw around this word system and they say, yeah, this is the ultimate memory system and so forth. The ultimate memory system is the system you create for yourself. And the biggest gift that you can give to anyone else is helping them create their own memory systems. And there's different systems that you can create in memory. A memory palace is not a system, but you can have a system of memory palaces because you want to be able to create memory palaces in multiples. And then you can have your multiplicity of memory palaces, your gathering, your collection, your your school of memory palaces, so to speak, school of fish, school of memory, no, that doesn't work. We got to come up with something. Murder of crows, murder of memory palaces, no, that doesn't work. Herd of memory palaces, no. But I think that system of memory palace or memory palace systems, that works. But each memory palace is too much of a life form to be a system. But you can create it in a way that's rule bound nonetheless. And the rules themselves are method. They're constraint. There's a method of constraint. So I know that sometimes makes it sound like, wow, that sounds really hard, but actually it isn't. It's so easy once you get into it. Just as poetry is easy, like rhyme scheme, A B A B or A B B A or A B C D or A B C A or whatever, however you would create your rhyme scheme. Once you get the concept, once you know that there are different rhyme schemes available, then you just get busy creating them, and then you get busy using them, and everything comes from doing. Doing is the origin of confidence, creativity, courage, consistency, all those things that we all need and we get from actually using the techniques. So I'm teaching you to create systems. I'm teaching you the basis, the foundation for it, and then I give you examples and show you how to do this for yourself so that you're taught how to fish and the fishing is kept to a minimum. Although there are the magnetic memory method implementation boot camps where we'll fish together, and really had a wonderful session last time. And you're going to want to be in the magnetic memory method masterclass if you want to be on the October boot camp, implementation boot camp, to practice together or to have the replay. Flora is here. Hola, Flora. Great to have you here. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question, Shafika. And if you're interested in book form, this is not the same as the masterclass, but if you'd like to have a sort of different point of entry, then grab the Magnetic Memory Method book, the new one. Hot off the presses, smelling real nice. That's one of the first things that a person said when they saw a picture of the boxes. Those books must smell real good, and yes, they do. So you can get the memory connection at magneticmemorymethod.com/connect. Love to have you over there and checking out the information. WizKid said something here. Thanks for that. I never really saw it that way, so hearing it put in that perspective clarifies it. I'm off to go try out your suggestion on using memory techniques on information for fun. Have a good night. WizKid, thanks for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Shafika says 2TQ. Not sure what that means, but I like it. Let me know, please. I love to learn new acronyms. I know everybody likes to learn new acronyms as well. Peach, that's one of the favorite acronyms. People are telling me, oh, your Peach thing is really, really great. And thanks for checking that out. If you haven't seen the Peach video, go check it out. And of course, DOC, people love. There's a couple of them now that we've got going on. I love acronyms. So, and acronyms, of course, are related to memory. Oh, TQ is thank you, like, because when you say thank you together, it sounds like Q. I like that. That's cool. And by the way, I thank you all for your thumbs up letting me know you're engaged. I really appreciate that. I really like going and watching or looking at some of the statistics later. It's amazing to me how many people watch the replays and show their engagement, and the comments that come after from people who've missed them. Really, really appreciate that. It's really exciting to do this for people, to help y'all, and to know that it means something to you, that you're engaged. So keep that going. It's really important for all people out there on the internet. You know, the internet's changing so much. It's changing all the time, and corporations are taking over and making it harder and harder. So if we want to maintain the tradition, not just of memory, but the tradition of what the internet has been the last 10 years, 15 years, like, your support, your engagement is so critical to that. This is your internet, and you can shape it, and really make sure you nourish the people who are nourishing you, and let the ones who are destroying it know that you don't want it to be that way. And so that's really, really important, because the work that people like myself do, and there's so many good ones, both in memory training and in all sorts of other arts, they're just incredible, and they're using the technology in ways that's just fascinating and so helpful. It's making the world so much better, and that is never to be taken for granted. Never ever to be taken for granted. Please, please do your part. If you're engaged, hit likes and leave comments and say hello and be involved. It's good for your memory too. It's good for your memory because you have participated, and you'll remember that you were part of something. You were part of global mental literacy, as Tony Buzan calls it. And I love that. I love that. I love all people, and I love all people, especially who participate. The Memory Connection is part of helping you participate more. And if you'd like to get a copy, I'd be just delighted for you to have one. So head on over to magneticmerrymethod.com/connect for all the info. And I'll be talking about it for a while because, well, it's new. And it's a new way of helping people at a deeper level. Floor says, I discovered recently that I need to be socialized more in order to improve my memory. People are key. Yes, absolutely. Floor, thank you for saying that. It's a huge part of the Memory Connection. And it's not just that oxytocin is produced in the brain, which is very, very helpful. Also, a bit of norepinephrine is produced by the brain, which is part of memory. It's part of encoding memory. But also, people are a portal and a path to remembering more. And then when you're using the art of memory, the more people you know, the more tools you have in your memory toolbox to make associations. This is really, really, really important. You've got to feed your brain new information, because the more you know, the more you can know. And the more people you know that you've actually had contact with, that you actually met, looked eye to eye, wow, the more you're going to be able to actually use memory techniques. The memory techniques will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And also, this is an important point, the more likely you are to use the memory techniques. So I met someone named Sarah the other day. I met someone named Ali. And because I'm meeting people more and using the techniques, I'm more likely to actually remember to use them. So I'll never forget their names, and I won't be embarrassed. And they just learned what I do, and I, of course, said, yeah, test me the next time you see me. And then, of course, because I do that, I actually then put some stakes on the matter, There's a bit of risk, because I don't want to look like an idiot the next time that I see them. So I actually do what memory techniques require to be done. And I just think a couple more times during the day, be like, oh yeah, what was that? Well, yeah, so I saw Fergie, because that helps me remember Sarah. Saw her boxing with Muhammad Ali, to remember his name's Ali. And then I encode it. I encode it. So, well, actually the encoding happens in the moment, and then the decoding happens. And then I get it into long-term memory. And I see those people, and I'm going to have done, I'm going to practice what I preach, right? I'm actually using the memory techniques. I'm actually using them right now by saying, hey, I met these people named Sarah and Ali, right? Which I encourage you to do as well. Now, you don't have to go on this big speech about how you saw Fergie and you saw Muhammad Ali and so forth. Although, why not? Why not share this tradition with other people? Say, you know how I remember those names? And people might say, yeah, you couldn't remember the name Sarah and Ali. Well, I'll be the first to tell you I couldn't without these techniques. And without these techniques as being such a part of my life, I probably wouldn't have even paid attention to them introducing them in the first place, which is a terrible crime that we do to each other. And the cure is to use memory techniques because it'll tone you to be more attentive to the world around you. It'll cause you to be more present to other humans. And then you'll use the techniques and you'll get much more. It broke my heart one time. I heard from a major memory person. This was like maybe had a bit of the telephone game effect where I heard it through someone else who heard it from someone else, whatever. So it may not be true, so that's why I'm not even going to mention the person. But anyway, they said that their sort of stock answer when they've forgotten someone's name is that they'll just be like, yeah, well, sorry, I didn't remember your name. It wasn't that important to me in the first place, or you weren't that important to me, or however it went. And again, it just broke my heart anyway that a person in our tradition would say that. But isn't that interesting? Because even if you don't have that cold response in your heart that people aren't important enough to memorize their names, if you don't remember their names, you have that attitude by default, right? But wouldn't you want to walk around in life having the thing that even if you forget their name, you at least cared enough about a fellow human being that you tried, that you were on the path to remembering the names of every person that you met? Isn't that a better feeling than the cold heart of, yeah, there's a lot of people out there, they're not important enough to remember their names. Ooh, that's icky. Icky, sticky, and no, I don't like that. I don't want that. I hope I never get that way. And I study the brain and I age myself. I'm a human being. I've noticed aging things that go on as I get older. And it worries me that I might become a different person than I am today, and we may all be a different person in the future. And one of the reasons why, one of my whys for writing this book was because I wanted to figure out how can I myself maintain the identity of the person and the things that I like inside of myself. How can I maintain this so that I'm able to actually have a life worth remembering and maintain the things that I really, really like and have constant improvement and remember to improve and to remember to be constantly improving and never wind up with a cold heart. So that even if I wind up with dementia or other people wind up with dementia who practice the magnetic memory method, that if that terrible thing happened or a rock falls from the sky or from a building or whatever and their personality changes, that not only was their life lived so worth remembering, but that the others will remember them so well, that they were so good, that they were so real, so authentic, so true, so kind, that they will take care of them even if they've changed to something else, even if they become a monster. That's part of my concern here. Maybe I think too much about it, but I really, really think that memory is the path to living a life that will be comfortable, a life that will minimize suffering, so that suffering will be the least of your concerns. Because suffering is a terrible thing, and so you do that by loving all people and caring enough to remember their names, or at least giving it a try. Stormy Cape says, creeping past 70 now, how do I increase my recollection speed? Well, what you do is you practice recalling, and I need to know more about your story and your situation and what it is you're trying to recall. So get in touch. One thing that I would suggest is that you become part of the masterclass so you can be on implementation boot camps. To answer Steve's question, are my boot camps only hosted in Brisbane or other cities as well? Steve, the boot camps they take place in private webinars for masterclass members, owners, people who have the masterclass. If you don't have the masterclass, I highly recommend that you just take my free training and see if that's something for you, and then you'll get an invitation to be in the masterclass. Or you can just go straight to magneticmemorymethod.com/store and get hooked up if you don't want to take a free course. That's probably the best way to do it. So that's really easy. magneticmemorymethod.com/store, or just go to the main site, register for a free course, see if what I do is something for you. And there's homework to be done. And if you do the homework, then you're going to get results in advance, and you're going to be like, like most people who join the masterclass, I want this, I want more, I want to take this as far as it will go. And that's how you get on an implementation boot camp, and it's a lot of fun. By the way, for people who get the memory connection, we're doing a book club, and we're going to read a book a month together, and you'll know what those books are by getting this book, and that's going to be a lot of fun. And you don't have to buy the books. You'll learn enough from the book club meetings to really make my goal actually is not so much that you read it in advance, but for me to sell you on wow, I got to read this. But you'll have so many takeaways just from the three sort of major things that we'll cover from each book. It'll be like a lecture. It's like a little memory university, but it's just for people who have this. So get involved. It's going to be great. And that, I haven't put that up in the story yet. So you got to go to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect for the book. And if you want the implementation boot camps, then that's part of being in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. And just so you know, Stormy Cape, you can increase the recollection speed just by practicing memorizing and then practicing recalling. Floor says, I'm an introvert and I do need people to share the stuff that I know. Yeah, you got to share what you know. You got to educate other people, and you got to be educated. So many people know so many things that they don't even know that they know, and you can learn from them what they don't know that they know, or they don't see it as an asset, just by asking questions, getting in touch, hanging out, asking them questions. And it's really, really incredible what can happen for you if you just go and meet people. You know, in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, there is training on what to do if you're an introvert, how to get out, speak to people. Just really low pain ways of doing it gradually so that you're able to be much more active, interactive with people, and you're having a great time. And you're having a great time because that's really what it's all about. It's doing it in a way that's low pain. But you need challenge, right? And you balance challenge so that you're being challenged so that you grow, but not in a way that you hit a point of frustration. Anytime you hit frustration, scale back, but make sure you're still challenged. If you're not challenged, you're not learning, you're not growing. You need to be growing, you need to be learning. So, let's see. Shafika says, I've been learning from several audiobooks regarding memory techniques, such as Kevin Trudeau's program, Dominic O'Brien's system. These programs are from the library. Been listening to Josh Ford's book too. Excellent. My question is regarding the POA system. Is that used as a peg in the memory palace, or is it more for remembering numbers and cards mostly? Shafika, I've changed my feeling about PAO over time, and it basically arrives at the same thing. I'm not going to get too deep into PAO right now, but if you search that on my website, you'll find a lot of discussion. There's a previous video, a previous Magnetic Memory Method Live we did about PAO, and ultimately, I'd really recommend that you create one for yourself. You're talking a lot about terminology and so forth, and one of the things that's really interesting is that peg, chain, all these kinds of things, what are you really doing? You want to start thinking about what these techniques really are, because those are a lot of different terms and terminology that can confuse a lot of people. And so it's really important to have a good practice of actually using the techniques and finding your own way. And I've tried to eliminate as much of that terminology as possible and create a stronger foundation so that when you think about pegs, you think about them at a much higher level through the foundation of the memory palace, but not just any memory palace, a magnetic memory palace. And that is something that needs, it's like in the Matrix, you've got to, it can't be known, you have to experience it, and all that kind of stuff. But it's true, because if you're not really doing it, then you don't know the difference. So give those things a try. And when you find your way, you'll either be deeply satisfied because those resources that you've mentioned are fantastic For many people, there'll be more than enough. But if you find, I mean, it says right here on the back of this book, the memory connection is your personal path to much more than remembering information. Sure, you want to study, learn, remember, and experience the mastery and fluency of knowledge in many realms, but you also want more. As many lifelong learners discover, no matter how much you learn about memory techniques, there will be a point where you cannot progress. This limit is reached because true growth comes from connecting your memory to the larger scope of your life. So if you're, and it goes on, but if you're finding that those things aren't enough, then come to the Magnetic Memory with the Masterclass, or just at least get this book. And it will help you see those techniques in a much broader, but also more laser targeted and specific sense. And as I mentioned, if you want to know more about the PAO, just search magneticmemorymethod.com and PAO, and you'll find other ways that I've discussed it. And you'll get a pretty good sense. But your question of, is it more for remembering numbers and cards mostly? It's a good question, but it's not where the power is, because those things can be for memorizing anything. You've got to understand something larger, which is, what is it that you want? What's your outcome? And then what's your real understanding of all those things in relation to the memory palace? It really is that way. A lot of people discount spatial memory, but they don't understand that it's always spatial memory one way or the other. Your brain encodes memory chemically in location. And we know that there's a relationship from the things in the external world, location-wise, and where and how it's stored in the brain, location-wise. And if you want to look into it more, read Koslin's The Case for Mental Imagery, and it'll unpack all that stuff. I really like that book. I like it a lot. And it's so amazing because it just puts into science the things I was talking about years ago before I even read it, because it's just logical, and it must be that. It must be so. It must be that way. But when you're thinking about pegs and you're thinking about PAO and all that sort of stuff, there are bigger fish to fry. And you can use all those techniques for anything. So it's not that they're better for memory or for cards or all that sort of stuff. If you really have this dialed in, you can memorize anything. And you'll want to have spatial memory as your foundation and the basis for instantly assessing what tools will be best. And the Memory Palace is the unique in that all those other techniques can be used inside of Memory Palaces, but Memory Palaces can't be used necessarily inside of pegs. Maybe there's some ways, but then the question really is, well, isn't a peg really just related so strongly to the Memory Palace in the first place? So not to be confusing, but I just think that this is a much larger discussion that you want to look into, and there's other material on the PAO. But ultimately, what I teach is so related to PAO, but the PAO are shackles if they're not freed with a stronger basis. And it is that principle, again, where the rules will set you free, but it's just like, what's your outcome? What is your why? What's your why else? And how do you have it all dialed down to what you're trying to achieve? It's great questions, though. Great questions. And I think the PAO thing is really, really fascinating. And the fact of the matter is if you have the major method, you can create a PAO very, very quickly. And you can create multiple PAOs just like that if you sit down and do it. So it's amazing. And you can even create multiple major methods for yourself if you want. So, I mean, it's just a matter of what is it that you want to do, and then getting down and doing it. And let your outcome be your guide, which was the point of this call from the very beginning. If you weren't on at the beginning and you haven't said hello, please do. Let me know where you are in the world and what you're doing. But I'm actually going to motor here pretty quickly because it's going to be lunchtime, and I have a bunch of books to deliver, and I can't wait to get the first shipment going. These are sent out the next business day, and they weren't sent out yesterday because it was the Queen's birthday here in Australia. But I'm so excited to go and put these in the mail. Got a stack Man, it's going to be great. I'm glad that there's a post office right around the corner. But amazing. I'm so excited. And of course, this comes with the Magnetic Memory Method memory stick. It comes with the book club. It comes with all kinds of stuff. So if you want to know more about what it all comes with, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect, and it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'm really looking forward. Shadip Sir says hello again. Well, hello again. Shafika says, I'm wading through all the memory literature to come up with a method to teach my kids better retention. You know, just get started. The thing is that you can read about memory until the end of time. And I hope that you do, because there's always more to learn and discover. This is such a wonderful tradition to belong to. Just get them started. I'd be honored and delighted if you'd use the magnetic memory method to help guide what you do with them. So just go to magneticmemorymethod.com, take the free course, get them into spatial memory by having them learn the memory pals. There's an assignment there. Do the assignment. You're going to find that it will help you, and it will help you help them. I don't know what their ages are. 6 seems to be the earliest for spatial memory. 10 is a real sweet spot for getting started, but just get started. Please do. Stormy Cape asks, are you attending the Memory Championships in Melbourne this year? I don't have any plan to, but that'd be interesting. You know, yeah, I just don't, I'm not really all that interested in competing myself, but if there's a way for me to be involved, then maybe I will. I did my competition thing. It was fun. Learned a lot. But I think I have a different role in this world, and it would be fun to go. But it'd be fun to go. So if you're connected with them, then get in touch. Be interesting. But no plans in particular. I do want to see Melbourne though, so that'd be a damn fine time to go. And I certainly promote and recommend everybody get into memory competition at some point in your life, because you'll learn a lot. The competition is sort of, it uses memory techniques, but it's also about something more in many ways, something in addition to memory techniques, and super fascinating, super wonderful, really great. And I know a lot of people are reading Moonwalking with Einstein and so forth, and there's just so much to be explored about it. And I'm so grateful that they're there, thanks to Tony Buzan and the people who have helped him make that possible. It's going to be the 26th year for the World Memory Championships coming up. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that incredible? This is all based on a tradition that's thousands and thousands of years old. Stormy Cape says, thanks, going to attend the championships. Well, Stormy Cape, thanks for letting me know, and if we happen to meet there, that'd be fantastic. It's crazy. Last night I was just at a cafe, and someone came up to me, and he was like, hey, are you Anthony Metivier? I was like, yeah. And then he was like telling me he was taking memory training from me, and I was like, whoa, amazing. So it's like really cool to meet people, and we had a nice little chat. And but Stormy Cape, make sure I know who you are by email and so forth, because I'm really an email guy, and I know on the internet we all use these wonderful names, and your name is very memorable, of course. But put a name to the username, so to speak. That would be great. But if you're on this listening to this the replay or whatever, do consider going. You can even compete in the privacy of your own home. There's the Memory League, and yes, lots of ways to compete online if you want. If you don't know that, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Cool apps and so on. All right, guys. Well, it was really great hanging out today. Really appreciate everybody being here. One last time, if you want the memory connection, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/connect, and that'll give you the info that you need. I can't wait. Put everything together. There's a bunch of stuff I can't show that goes into the package. One of which is the newsletter first edition that you're going to get. and first issue, better said. And wow, really excited to help people in that way. So thanks for being here. Go to magneticmemorymethod.com/connection. If you get the Magnetic Memory Method book, The Memory Connection, please take a photo. Show me what it looks like in your hands so I can get to know you better and connect with you. Connect. That's really, really important. There's also access to the secret Facebook group, so we've got to make sure that you get in there as well. And some interesting things happening there. Connect. Interesting discussions. Thanks to everybody. Had a lot of fun. Just come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com if you haven't before. Make sure that you are involved. Thanks for hitting that like button. Thanks for leaving comments. If you're watching this later and you're not subscribed to this channel, subscribe. It's really cool how many new subscribers have landed on the channel, and really excited that you're here. Thank you very much. Until we have a chance to speak again, do something for your memory. Just get started. Doing is the origin of confidence, courage, creativity, everything. Everything you need. And come back to the replay and leave a comment. Say some things. Let's engage. Let's keep the conversation going. And until we speak again, keep yourself magnetic.